Today's episode is sponsored by Future State Media, experts in off-Amazon traffic for Amazon sellers. Future State Media will build you a custom-made website to deliver sales for you on Amazon. Built to grab traffic from search engines and social media, your site can be used as a secret weapon for launching products on Amazon or just to stabilize your Amazon sales. It means you can also build an email list on autopilot. Go to futurestatemedia.com for your free guide to Google SEO for Amazon sellers today. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the show. This is your host, Michael Veazey. I'm speaking with Tommy Griffith, the founder of ClickMinded, an SEO specialist, not just a specialist, but the former SEO manager at PayPal and Airbnb. Get that. So that's some pretty serious SEO chops. So, Tommy, we're going to talk. We had a very philosophical kind of discussion about platform risk and concluded that life's risky, get over it, or something like that. Do you have a list? I think, this is something you have to come to terms with, right? But let's get down to brass tacks, as we say in the UK. So, I don't know why brass tacks are good things, but they are, traditionally. What do we do with traffic from Google? First of all, how to get Google traffic in the e-commerce world, and then secondly, what do we do when we've got it? So let's start with this is like such a general question to ask an SEO specialist, I realize, but let's deal with it. Let's look at the nuts and bolts of Google. I don't mean nuts and bolts. I mean the 50,000 foot view. How do we get traffic on Google from an e-commerce seller's perspective?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, the first, and this is going to be very 101 for any intermediate, like plus sort of listeners, but the very first thing I recommend, and this is with an Amazon business or really any internet business, is keyword research. And Amazon, you'll have to do one extra step, which is sort of sizing up the viability of the product and product sourcing stuff, which we won't cover today. But the basic concept is, we can use third-party tools to figure out how frequently terms are searched for, right? Nike shoes searched for 4,000 times a month, or bamboo barbecue grill skewers at 2,500 a month, or whatever the classic product example that people use these days with Amazon businesses. But I really recommend over-investing in keyword research in the beginning for a number of different reasons. The first is, like, when you kind of figure out who your customer is and what they're looking for, you want to lay out, and you can simply do this in an Excel document or a Google Sheet document, you want to lay out the entire universe of things that they are searching for. They can be searching for these things on Amazon or on Google, but you want to get a really good understanding of what your users' problems are. And you'll end up using a lot of this data later on if you have your own site and you're not just on Amazon. You can create content around it. You can create emails around it. It can be inspiration for how you move into new products or upsells or downsells or cross-sells or things like that. But I really recommend over-investing in this. My two favorite tools with this are kwfinder.com and ahrefs.com, ahrefs.com. They're third-party keyword research tools. Sometimes they include Amazon-specific tools, and you can go to their About Us pages, and they'll tell you how they come to the conclusion of what the Amazon search volume is. It's usually third-party plugins and things like that. But you don't have to necessarily use an Amazon focus one. The basic idea is you use search volume, third-party search volume data tools to get a really good proxy for demand, right? Like, what are people Googling? What are their problems? What are they searching for? That is first, second, and third place. That is rule 0. You have to have a really concrete plan there, right? Once you've done that, everything flows from that decision. So you know what your core keywords are, you know what your users want, and then we go about the process of optimizing our pages. Like I said before.
So just to interrupt, sorry, because it's a lot to absorb. You're like me, you're like, okay, press the go button, which is great. I love it. But so just let me just clarify when you say, because this is a really interesting way of putting it. So I want to clarify that I've understood. You want to lay out the entire universe of things that they search for. Can you give us an example of what do you mean by that? Because that sounds quite different from advice I've heard before.
Yeah, sure. So I like these two tools I mentioned, KW Finder, Ahrefs. These are great ones. But the idea is I guess there's two kind of ways to go about it based on where you are in your business. One is like, I'm looking for products and I'm looking for what people are searching for. The other one is, I know exactly who my customer is. I know who my customer avatar is. I want to fulfill their needs. It sort of depends on where in the business you are. But
okay, well, let's assume for the more advanced listeners that you know your customer avatar and you have an established set of products. And so, where do we go from there? Let's say, the typical example will be somebody's nailed down their customer avatar to a degree. They're quite clear in they think they're clear anyway. There's probably always work to do, right, on the sorts of products they sell and the sort of brand they are on, and they're mostly focused on Amazon, and they are emerging into the sunlight going, oh wow, Amazon platform risk probably, or they want to create a more sustainable or more diversified business for whatever reasons, and they're looking at Google. Let's say that person, what do we do from that point?
Got it. Okay, so they're an FBA seller. They already have 2 to 50 SKUs, something like that, and they know who their customer avatar is. They're already kind of succeeding. Everything's sorted. Cool. Yeah. So I mean, the first thing I would do there is I would take all of my core keywords, right, and throw those into a third-party tool and start to find all the related sort of variations of them, right? Like different colors, different sizes, different features, things like that, right? If it's a barbecue thing, right, it's like the hamburger flipper that's a degreaser, right? Or maybe it's a purple handle or a green handle or a red handle, or maybe one's for winter, maybe one's for summer, right? That kind of thing. Those are like individual product modifications. Those are fairly straightforward. That's like inspiration for new products and things like that. But there might be other problems as well. Like if you find, if it's someone who's doing a lot of like barbecuing in that particular example, who is that avatar? Why are they barbecuing? Did they just start a low carb or no carb diet? Is that why they're doing it? Like, what are their other problems? And so I really love to do this kind of agnostic of Amazon, which is you start to get, once you're really dialed into your customer avatar, you lay out the entire universe of possible things that they are Googling. And you third-party search volume data becomes a proxy for demand. It's a proxy for human behavior. This is why there's a lot of offline examples of this as well. Like HTC famously started using Google search volume data to pick the colors of some of their phones, right? Like Google Trends data now can predict flus before they happen because people are Googling symptoms, right? Kind of before flu outbreaks happen, which is wild. That's a different podcast episode in and of itself. but the point is like, we're at this unprecedented time where people are typing in their thoughts, feelings, wants, and desires into a little box on their screen, and you can capture all of that. You can centralize that to one document and lay it all out. And so this can set your content strategy. This can set your product development strategy. This could determine where the next office you set up is for your business, or the next kind of customer you sort of go after, and like the emails you create, the YouTube videos you create, that kind of stuff. So if you're really dialed into your customer avatar already, the basic idea here is you want to use one of these third-party tools, and you want to be relentlessly typing in every variation of what you think your customers are Googling. You lay it out into a document and you sort of size it up. You can do some math-based things around, we call it, the dorky way to describe this is called total addressable market sizing, TAM sizing. And we did this at Airbnb and at PayPal. Like we created this product once we launched the experiences feature at Airbnb. We created a product called Guidebooks. And the basic idea is like, how are people looking for things to do in certain cities, right? And so we do total addressable market sizing. Like a lot of people are querying things to do in city name, right? How many people are querying restaurants in city name? How many people are querying walking tours in city name, right? What do locals do in city name? That kind of stuff. So you can lay out all this human behavior in one place. And then that, to me, I'm very biased towards SEO, but you can do this for non-SEO reasons. This becomes your roadmap for how you capture your customers later.
Wow, that's quite profound. So I guess this is, I guess, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. But I guess the other way of putting that is, if you've got somebody who's very fluent in an area, then that tool can become much more flexible than you thought. Like, for example, for me, a piano can be like a tool for smashing out accompaniments to rock songs. It can be something to improvise jazz on. It could be something to play very high art classical stuff. It could be something I smash in a bar occasionally if I had enough drinks and they don't have the system on. So yeah, I guess, I mean, for most people, it's quite, they think of it as it does one thing because that's their experience of it. So you have, how can I put this, almost like a religious level of faith in the power of keywords to reveal people's thoughts. But I guess it comes down to talking platform specific. It's because Google did such an insanely great job of changing consumer behavior, like human behavior. It kind of changed the internet. It kind of changed how people shop. It's changed how people live. If I'm going to go down the road somewhere, even if it's around the corner from me, rather than just asking somebody local because I don't know my neighbor's name because I live in London, I just look on Google because it's kind of my friend. And Yeah, it's quite profound. Okay, so tell me about this. Let's just clarify that I understand the concept of total addressable market. It sounds
Mhm.
very sexy. It sounds like the sort of thing you'd throw around in a boardroom and everyone would go, yeah, yeah. But just to clarify, for an e-commerce seller, again, bringing that back, whether on Amazon or whatever else, what does that mean, and how do we figure it out, and what's the use of that concept?
Yeah. So, like, as if you have your product defined, like, let's say it's barbecue grill stuff, right? The idea here is you'd lay out the total universe of things people would be buying for that. So, like, the very clear one would be every variation of barbecue grill is like one sort of bucket, right? Like barbecue grill, electric barbecue grill, a 2-foot one, a 5-foot one, a 10-foot one, whatever, like propane, not propane, electric. And those are different products. And those effectively every type of intent is a different URL on your site, right? And so like you'll have bottom of the funnel kind of stuff, which is like the name of the product. Like, okay, people are Googling this product. When you Google it, the Google product listing ads show up. Amazon's at the top. Like there's a lot of competition over it. Those are like products, and there's like people have their credit cards out and they're ready to buy those products. That one's pretty straightforward. But if you move up the funnel to middle funnel and top of funnel, it's like people sizing up the next like kind of phase of their life. Like maybe they're trying to like they have a new house and they're trying to optimize their whole deck, right? Everything outside. And so you could create these new buckets. Like once you have all your products set and lined up and ready to go, and you've effectively created all of your Amazon inventory, you've moved it over to your site. Maybe the next move is, you know, the classic kind of dorky, but still works. Like 10 things you should think about this summer before your barbecue thing, before your barbecue grill for your party, or things like that. But that's a dorky example. But the point is, when you you want to lay out all the possible keywords your customer avatars are typing in, and then you bucket them into different types of intent, and you're sort of moving them into these buckets where you add them up. So you have all these search volumes. Right. You know, how to throw a barbecue party is searched for 2,000 times a month, and best barbecue party ideas is searched for 1,000 times a month. And you sort of add these up, and then you can apply a click-through rate percentage to these. So we're going to get a little into the weeds here, but there's third-party sites you can use to figure out click-through rate attribution. My favorite is Advanced Web Ranking. I can send you all the links. Maybe we can put these in the show notes. But Advanced Web Ranking is an SEO tool, and they kind of publish every month what the value in their data set of a number one ranking on Google is, right? What the value of a number two ranking is. The TLDR, like kind of summary, is that 75% of clicks go to the top 5 results, right? But you can take one of these third-party tools and they'll say, okay, a number one ranking is worth 35% of clicks, right? If you're ranking number one on Google, you get 35% of all the clicks. If you're ranking number 2, you'll get 15% all the way down. So when you know this, when you know the keywords your users are typing in, and you know how frequently they're searched for every month, and you have a general idea of what those click-through rate percentages are, you can start to create the theoretical maximum amount of traffic that you can receive. And so we like to do this is like you lay out the whole universe of keywords, you bucket them into conceivable URLs, right? And then you know the search volumes associated with them. You know how much traffic you're going to get if you're ranking number one across everything. And it's very unlikely you're ranking number one for everything, but that gives you your theoretical maximum. You can apply a conversion rate to that. You can apply a price point to that. And then you suddenly have a plan, right? You say, okay, if I create these 20 URLs that are worth X amount of traffic, and I'll end up getting Y amount of traffic on my site, and I'll convert Z number of them, and my price point is this, you suddenly have a good estimate for what that business is worth. And you can do this, and a lot of people don't do this, you can do this before you invest a dime, right? You can do all of this before you import your first product, and before you hire new staff, and before you set up a new website. You can get a really interesting ballpark. And it ends up being a really brutal process, because a couple things happen. The first thing that happens, and we've just taught so many people over the years, I used to teach at a university, this kind of stuff. We have more than 10,000 paid users at ClickMinded. And when you do this and you become kind of religious with the data, the first thing that happens is people say, hey, there's no one searching for the product I'm about to import. What should I do? Oftentimes, the answer is don't do it, right? Or sometimes the answer is like, hey, I already ordered a container of this thing, but no one's Googling for it. What should I do? And it's like, you should probably light it on fire and start over, right? So like So the math doesn't lie. It's absolutely brutal. It's absolutely horrifying sometimes. Now, the other piece of this is sometimes it's incredibly uplifting. Sometimes there's a certain keyword that's searched for 10 times more than you thought, right? Or sometimes there's a different type of there's a different product direction that this ends up leading you into. So I guess my point, again, long-winded answer here. Sorry, Michael. I guess my point is a lot of people go into this the wrong way. They do what I call like the shower thought internet marketing, where they like wake up in the morning, they take a shower, and they're like, I have an idea for a blog post. And I think that's a very dumb, inefficient, ineffective way to go about doing this. I think a much better way is you overinvest in the beginning process, you overinvest in the keyword research, you lay out all driven from your customer avatar. You lay out every conceivable sort of thing users would be Googling. You place those into URLs. You apply a click-through rate percentage. Then you apply a conversion rate percentage. Then you apply your product price. And you can it's not going to be perfect, but it's going to be a lot closer than your shower thought and like when you had beers with your buddies over this idea. You know what I mean?
I really love the shower thought thing, and I'm laughing and smiling here, the smile of the embarrassed and ashamed man, because I mean I've been running a podcast for just over 4 years now. We've done by the time this comes out, I guess it's going to be like 380 episodes, so it's quite a lot. I know that my keyword research is bad, but that is the downside of being a creative person who is capable. I'm capable of analysis. I quite like spreadsheets, but I get really lazy about it. And you just nailed down why my business, the Amazing FBA, is not 3 times the size it is. Because
Can I call you out?
you totally 100% called me out. And the thing is that when you're creating content, this is an interesting one, because obviously I've done a lot of e-commerce stuff. I work with a lot of e-commerce sellers, but also done a lot of the content marketing driven and sort of more information product type stuff. I guess the stuff that you're in ClickMinded. So we've both had both experiences, right? There is a discipline around having to import $5,000 worth of hard goods from China, which you're right, some people don't do any research. I once literally had somebody who literally ordered a container of stuff from the Canton Fair on the basis of no research, which is the most extreme thing ever. I kind of admire it. It's kind of crazy, but it's harder to be quite so crass when you're ordering that much physical product, but it is easier when you're doing it with keywords. But the interesting thing is there's no reason why e-commerce sellers can't fall into the same trap, because if they're focused on Amazon a great deal and they start doing Google in an amateurish way, I think it is very easy to fall into the trap. At least I'm saying that because maybe I'm a complete idiot, but it's just you've just laid out a very clear-minded reason for really trusting the keywords and a way of kind of going from the keyword data, which I always felt was like an amorphous mass, and turning that into a sort of quantifiable financial plan, which is maybe the critical missing piece. That total addressable market idea is the missing piece for most people, because I'm sure I'm not the only person that, particularly in the podcast space, like you can't even do podcast SEO. I mean, I'm sure you can, but I don't know. We've looked into it for hours and hours with clever people. But yeah, I think that's the missing link, right? So let's not go any further into why I'm a complete idiot, but let's go into let's say you've applied this stuff. Okay, so you've got the I think it's important to be honest. You've got the total addressable market. You've looked at the universe of keywords with, and the caveat you put in, I just want to emphasize, when you've really nailed down your customer avatar. And if you think you haven't, I guess there's a whole bunch of work to talk about there. But let's not get into that. Let's get into the next step. Let's get into, I've got my universe of keywords. I've got the total addressable market. What do I do with that information? You've already talked about product choices. You've already talked about ranking. Let's assume that you're quite good at choosing products and developing products by this stage. For some people listening will be, some not. What do we do if we want to specifically get some Google traffic and take it to Amazon? Let's deal with that first of all, which is not common, but I think is a really underused ploy that people in the smart people in masterminds I'm running are starting to do and starting to get results. So how do we go about that specific thing?
Yeah, sure. So the SEO 101 stuff, and this will be like roll your eyes kind of intro level for some of your intermediate and more advanced people. But my elevator pitch on SEO, 30 seconds kind of pitch is relevancy, authority, and technical optimization are the 3 pillars. So the relevancy, very basic, is once you've done your keyword research, any URL you're creating needs to be a relevant document for that thing, right? Like when you Google that thing now and you look at everything that's ranking now, Google has gone out into this massive this index it has and found the 10 most relevant documents for its users. They're trying to answer the user's question. You need to be among those documents. So the basics are, take your keyword and put it in the title, make sure it's mentioned 2 to 3 times in the copy. Like, do you have images that are around that? Are you using synonyms? Do you have internal links on your pages linking to it with that primary keyword? That kind of stuff. Once the sort of the basic sort of 101 stuff you could find on any SEO checklist, and everyone sort of knows that stuff. The next one is authority, and this will be different for every platform you optimize for. But the basic idea, the easier way to think about this is popularity. How popular is the page? Google has this problem of, okay, you type something into Google, they find 10 million different URLs. How do they pick the 10 best ones? And very simply, they pick the 10 most popular ones. That's generally what the people want. And so popularity, the metric for that on Google is links, right? So third-party links, right? And this is the relevancy stuff, the stuff we just talked about. It's also called on-page optimization. That is the science. It's very straightforward. It's very kind of more obvious. Popularity or authority is the art. And this is kind of the stuff that never ends. You can never take your foot off the gas on this. There's a million different ways to do it. The strategies change all the time, and it's an entire industry in and of itself. But the basic idea is this is probably the best way that Google can rank things, and it has tons of flaws. It's like, isn't that how they describe capitalism? It's the worst system. It's the second worst system. The only worst one is everything else, right? Or whatever it is. This is the problem. It's like, in a perfect world, you would create great content and you would earn exactly the amount of links that you deserve. And that's just not how it works. We generally recommend, and a lot of people kind of miss this, when you're creating stuff and you're trying to build more links to your site, you want to spend about 25% of your time creating the content and about 75% of the time distributing it, which is massive. A lot of people sort of underestimate how important this is, but we can kind of dive into authority more if we want to later. And then the third piece is technical optimization. And the basic idea here is there's 1.5 billion domains in the world, 1.5 billion. It is an incredibly comprehensive technical challenge for Google and any search engine to understand all of that mess. 1.5 billion domains, right? Not URLs, domains. And so technical optimization is all the engineering we do behind the scenes to make sure Google and other search engines are finding us, are crawling us, are understanding what we mean, are understanding language and country-specific stuff and things like that. The general idea here is the fewer URLs you have, the less this matters. There's always a handful of things you always have to do that we can talk about in a moment. But like, if you're in the like sub 100, even sub 500 or sub 1000 space, this sort of matters a little bit less. But as you have more and more SKUs and more variations and more color codes and size codes and things like that, this becomes more pagination. This becomes more and more and more comprehensive. At PayPal, just to give you some context, at PayPal, the total universe of URLs who I was really honestly optimizing for was probably in like the hundreds. At Airbnb, it was 10 million plus. And on my own site now at ClickMinded, it's like under 100 again, right? So because we have like a smaller number of sort of high quality, long form authoritative content. So it depends on your business. But in general, there's a number of things you can do to shoot yourself in the foot. And the technical optimization is more about just not shooting yourself in the foot. So those are kind of the 3 big pillars.
Thank you. Well, that's really helpful. I mean, and the thing is, yeah, of course, you can, I've read, like everyone else in internet marketing, too many articles on SEO, and I've got a great big thick book I can see over in the corner, which I every so often take down and read and can feel guilty about the art of SEO. And, but the thing is, getting an authoritative summary that puts it clearly is really helpful. And that's the clearest minded summary of SEO that I personally heard probably ever, but certainly for a long time. So that's great. Relevancy, on-page SEO. This is the science. Authority, link building. That's the art. And then the second worst system. So you accept that it's a technical optimization. And the other little nugget you just gave us in terms of just time usage, or your staff usage, if you've got a lot of staff. Spend 25% time on creating content. What was it you said? 75% promoting it, or what was? How did you put that?
Promoting and distributing it.
Distributing it. Okay. Yeah,
and
so
that can take a lot of different forms. That could be, posting on social media, emailing people with it. But the basic idea is we are not in a build it and they will come sort of world. You have to relentlessly let the universe know that you've created something awesome.
again, I mean, it's not so much an e-commerce example, but I'm finding with the podcast that that's absolutely true. I've got a terrible habit of two terrible things. So again, this is an example of what not to do, folks. Like, number one, the shower thought, which is you put a name to it, which is like, I think I'm going to write a post today about purple barbecues, or whatever. That's not what I do, but it's a similar thing. It's just a kind of scattergun approach. And the second thing is spending too much time creating the content as opposed to getting it out there. So, which I think is weirdly, what I think it's the flip side of what everyone does with product-based businesses, which is they go, right, I'm going to get some crap from China and stick a label on it. Now, how can I spend 10 hours obsessing with fooling the algorithm at Amazon that's created by the greatest engineers in the world outside of Google, or possibly similar, as opposed to, why don't you find out what an amazing product looks like and make it? So it's weird how actually with Google SEO, I think it almost has to flip on its head, and you need to go, okay, I need to create obviously really good content, but you need to be very aggressive about promoting it. And it's weird how there's a certain natural gravity towards one mistake or the other, right? I don't know if you've found that on Amazon. I just find a lot of the best sellers really create, amazingly speaking, it's a crazy idea, really understand their customers, really create good products that solve real problems. But it seems to not work that way in the Google universe, right? It's interesting how it's so opposite.
Yeah, and I think, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you can create mediocre stuff and spend the rest of your time doing other stuff. Right?
Yeah, sure.
The key here is, yes, you still have to create that awesome stuff, but it's very likely that you're severely underestimating how much you need to invest in distributing it.
Absolutely. I mean, for example, I think we're creating some great content here, but I mean, to get it out there to people, it's a total sweat. And I think I'm beginning to realize now how, brutal that is. And platform goes through stages. I mean, I think even 4 years ago or something that podcast was easier to get ranked on than it is now. And Google went through that phase. Obviously, there was like a beautiful phase around 2005, 07 when, Tim Ferriss wrote the 4 Hour Work Week, or what he based it on. And Amazon had a similar era where I guess it was easier to rank than it is now. But yeah, in the end, you need to be really on it with promotion. And yeah, I hear that mostly from doing the opposite and gradually learning. Some people are just really stupid and take a lot of time to learn. I'm like, when you bang your head against a brick wall enough times, sometimes you change. And sometimes entrepreneurs are the last people who learn from anything. I'm certainly a great example of that, sadly. But
me as well.
So therapy aside, let's talk about. So we've looked at SEO, which is great. So we talked about the keywords you address, total addressable market, having. Well, let's start with, again, reiterate, customer avatar nailed down, really critical. I think most people just skip over that bit, but the really good sellers I know do not. Making sure that you are really aware of the total addressable market, picking your keywords, SEO, the art and the science thereof. What's the next thing then? So what do we do with this traffic? I mean, we've got traffic on Google. If we want to send things to Amazon, and I appreciate that you haven't sold on Amazon for a couple of years, but you are an SEO expert who gets Amazon, I guess. What would you suggest then if my primary aim is to keep ranking and selling products on Amazon? I'm not trying to diversify platform risk so much as I'm trying to increase the traffic and therefore the revenue and all the good stuff that comes with that, like ranking on Amazon, beating out your competition, all that stuff.
Yeah, so we did, with my Amazon business, we tried a number of different kinds of things here, and I was very green about this and messed it up a lot because I'm always sort of been a top of funnel traffic guy, and like that was always, I've been working on that for so long, it came natural to me, and sort of figuring out the kind of entrepreneur 101 stuff around growing the business and making the business more valuable. I fumbled a lot and I messed up a lot of this stuff. That is kind of what's that expression? The dog who caught the car, right? Like I got everything ranking, the traffic was coming in, but then like, what do I do now? And we played with a bunch of different things. I mean, just to lay out some obvious examples that are probably ideas that are swimming in listeners' heads. The first one is, using, we had a Shopify site, and we would use sort of the third-party extensions to do fulfillment via Amazon, right? So all of our stuff is in the FBA warehouse. We take in the order, and then you can use the Shopify, an API on Shopify to sort of ping the Amazon warehouse and deliver the product to the user, right? Amazon takes less of a cut, et cetera, et cetera. But you're dealing with it's very interesting too, because we were just a 2-person sort of operation and you have a million different things to do. And it was very clear our website obviously converted significantly worse than Amazon, significantly worse, right? Like all the things, of course, around design and UI and trust and all that and reviews and the actual design of the page, of course. But, the Prime, free 2-day shipping and all this other kind of stuff as well. So, yeah, we wrestled with this a lot because I've also seen other people go the other direction of being just an affiliate, right? Like basically creating an Amazon affiliate site for their own business. I know at the time that was okay. That was okay with the rules. I don't know if the rules have changed at all, but you basically create a third-party site reviewing your own product. You can even disclose that it's yours. It's fine. But you basically append your Amazon affiliate link to the traffic. And you're just effectively increasing your margin on those things. The way to think about this, right? Again, you're 100% right. Rule 0 is your customer avatar. Everything flows from the customer avatar. But when you do that, and you know your customer avatar and it's dialed in, and then you do the keyword research and you have all your total addressable market sizing done, you want to be everywhere, right? You want to be in as many places as possible. How you go about converting that, the two kind of biggest options I saw were either, pulling that traffic onto your site, and we didn't want to use a 3PL that wasn't Amazon FBA at the time. So we just kept it all in one place because we were small and just wanted that dealt with. And so we had a very small, like 5% of our sales were coming to our own site and just using the FBA warehouse to fulfill. But we played often with the idea of shutting it down and just making it an Amazon site. But the same way, we in search engine optimization, there's an aspect of it called reputation management. And the basic idea is when you Google your business name or when you Google your own name, what shows up, right? You want to make sure it's all the articles talking about how great you are and not that video from college of you doing a keg stand and being a drunken mess, right? You want to make sure you dominate the search results. You generally want to dominate the first 20, page 1 and page 2, and 99% of people won't ever go past that. It's kind of a similar concept with Amazon, in my opinion, is once you know your avatar and you know your traffic, be everywhere, right? Be everywhere. And however you want to do it from there is fine. If you're saying, okay, Amazon is heroin, I want to get off it eventually, yes, use your own site, build your email list, start to do those things, be the right place, right time there. But if you're okay with the platform risk of Amazon and you are doubling down on Amazon, I'm very comfortable with you setting up that third-party site, reviewing your own products, and pushing people into Amazon with your affiliate link, right? So the idea here is like you can think of every result on Google as like, a trap door going somewhere. And you want as many of those trap doors as possible to go to your own products and not somewhere else. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. This reminds you of the strategy that Will Chernan, he's a very, very on Amazon focused guy, and he runs an agency helping businesses that are basically a lot of the time just selling to retailers or sort of some distribution network of some description to go direct to consumer and sell on Amazon. And for some businesses, a painful transition. His parents' own business went through a similar transition, hence he's well placed to do it. But he's very, very Amazon focused. But he does a similar thing on Amazon, which is like, okay, I don't want to be ranked the top position on page 1. I want every single product on page 1 to be either something I'm selling directly to Amazon, selling to Vendor Central, or back in the day Vendor Express, or Seller Central, which is a pretty aggressive strategy on Amazon. But you're kind of saying the same kind of thing, not necessarily blanket coverage, but you want to be ranking somewhere significant, I guess, for lots and lots of keywords that feed back. So it's like a sort of, in the end, 1,000 different, as you say, trap balls that slide all the way back to whichever you're trying to get working, right? Your Shopify site or Amazon. So again, I think a lot of it's a mentality shift, this stuff. I mean, I'm certainly finding that, what I think is normally the trick is not knowing stuff here and knowing stuff there and not knowing stuff here, because we all know like 90% of what we need to know. It's that how do we get from, for example, knowing that I should be doing something with thousands of keywords versus a practical thing that you can do led by a few simple principles that you can actually create a process out of, and get on a call with your VA and set up a spreadsheet and go, this is now a doable set of tasks, as opposed to this is an amorphous idea that kind of almost works. So what I mean, I think that's that's the trick. And I think you're really helping unlock some of this stuff. I mean, let's just try and dig a bit more into some, again, it's a how long is a piece of string thing. And in the end, I guess we can't avoid saying, go and take the click-minded courses, which is kind of one of the, we've got to put a pitch in there somewhere or everyone will be disappointed. But the truth is, obviously, we can't. It's like the classic pitch, but it is flipping obviously true that we can't even slightly cover the details. But nevertheless, if you had to put the next level down of granularity, if I want to say, go into business selling ballpoint pens for some insane reason. I actually worked with somebody who sold a variation of a kind of pen. It was a grim business. I worked with their agent. But let's say I want to sell, quite a narrow set of products within a certain niche. And I've got, say, 50 SKUs, a lot of which are variations, color, size, how big the tip is, whatever, 10 pack, 50 pack, blah, blah, blah. Okay, I've done my Google research. I've got my total addressable market. I've learned about SEO. I want to do this everything on Google's a trapdoor, sliding back to my Amazon funnel. I've decided I'm going to go straight to my Amazon listing because I don't trust that I have my Shopify. It's a very specific situation. What are my next practical steps? And imagine I've got to inform my VA, which is always quite a good test because half the time they come back to me and go, Mike, what the heck? I don't understand what you want me to actually do. So what's some simple things we can do at this point?
Got it. So, yep. Okay. So our product is up on Amazon. We're rolling there. We know what to do there. We now have our site, our brand site. It's an Amazon affiliate site pushing back to our products. Let's say we've created pages, right? And we've done all of our keyword research and we have all of our 50 SKUs. And maybe we even have 10, 20, 30 blog posts as well about the 20 benefits of ballpoint pens in 2019, something like that. It's like, okay, we've done all the work. Why aren't I ranking next? So the big problem in general is almost always authority or popularity, right? Google doesn't trust you yet because you're new. And so, and this is, you're right. This was easier in 2008, but it's the reality of it is we kind of the newer you are, the harder this is, and it's going to continue to become more difficult as time goes on, right? Today's really harder than yesterday, but it's easier than tomorrow, sort of thing. So, the next big thing I like to do, the fastest way, is a couple things. The first is, now that you know your avatar and your keyword research, you reverse engineer the link profile of everyone that's currently ranking. So you know what your primary keywords are, and the basic idea is you're going to Google them. You're going to pull down all those domains. Those are your competitors. And you can use third-party tools to find all the links to these domains, right? So you're going to have other sellers. Your competitors aren't always necessarily going to be business competitors. There's also, we call them SERP competitors, search engine results page competitors. So everyone's competitor is Wikipedia, for example, right? Because Wikipedia is always there. But the basic idea is you're going to have business competitors and you're going to have real estate competitors, basically people that are ranking above you that are taking your clicks. And so we can use these third-party tools, and they're often very similar. The ones I mentioned before, KW Finder and Ahrefs, are great research tools. They're also great link analysis tools as well. We input the people ranking above us into these tools, and these tools are basically private indexes of links. So they're scraping the web just like Google is, and we can reverse engineer the link profile of our competitors. This is usually the fastest way to go about doing this. A lot of people, they go into link building and they say, okay, I'm going to email my friends. I'm going to go to blogs I usually read. The way faster way is who's linking to my competitors and why. And their outreach, like I said before, is an industry in and of itself, and there's a million different ways to do outreach. One way to do outreach is, hey, you're linking to these other guys, also link to us because it's great for your users, right? That's your kind of classic pitch. Other examples are, hey, you're linking to this page, but it's actually broken or it's actually really out of date. We have a way more updated version of this, link to us instead, right? This is the art, right? This is, how do you convince webmasters to change their behavior and link to you? It's really hard. It never ends, and it's a grind. it's tough. And this is also one of the metrics that we use when we're doing total addressable market sizing, is basically how difficult will it be to break into the first page, right? How many other links do these pages have? So this is another way to size up the competitiveness of the keywords, is if you effectively look at the link profile and you figure out, you can do a rough estimate of how long it's going to take you. But I really love starting with all your competitors' links, right? So you reverse engineer the link profile of everyone in the top 10. You sift through them. and you throw out the ones that don't make sense, and then you find out how you can also get there as well. Like, it's always going to be different. It's never going to be very straightforward. Maybe you email, maybe you tweet, maybe you send them a box of cookies, like whatever it is, you kind of do that there. The other thing too that is a very controversial tactic that we've been recommending for a while, but I'm still a huge fan of it, is, especially in the early days, link to your competitors. This is the kind of concept we have called link neighborhoods, and the basic idea is like Google's trying to understand who you are the first time they crawl your site, right? Like, who are you sort of in bed with? What are you sort of doing? And one of the best ways to do this is to give Google a really good signal of what you're offering users. And so one of the ways I love to do this is link to sites that Google already thinks is authoritative. So one of my favorite things to do, once I know my primary keyword, I get that page up and running and it's optimized and it's great for users and blah, blah, blah. And I'll link to all the sites that are already ranking in the top 5 for that keyword. Now, if you're in a bigger company, if you're not an entrepreneur and you have to float this by executives, executives have a big problem with this. And of course, right? But also small-time entrepreneurs have a problem with this as well. But it's the funniest thing, because the newer you are, the less this matters, right? And it's really funny to see people with brand new concepts, a brand new product. They have like 5 SKUs. They have no traffic to their site. And they say, I don't want to link to competitors because I'm going to be sending business to my competitors. And 9 times out of 10, it's like, dude, you have no traffic. This would be a great problem to have, but it is not a problem at all. You're trying to convince Google that you're a great resource for their users, right? One easy, fast way to do this is link to stuff they already think is authoritative. If you suddenly start ranking really well and you're sending all this traffic to your competitors, sure, reevaluate it. Maybe remove some of those links, whatever. But a very simple way to do this is you do whatever you're going to do normally. You create this great resource, and then at the very bottom, you say, here's other things that might be of value, and link, 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 link. And so it's just kind of one additional sort of tactic where you're, especially when you're new, it's like, you're giving Google that nudge that, hey, this is what our topic is about. This is what we're related to. Like, bucket us in this group, in this neighborhood.
It's fascinating. I mean, it always fascinates me how this sort of thing works in business terms. I used to live in Manchester for a year, and there's a place called Curry Mile, which, as you would expect, is about a mile of shops, which is pretty much all curry houses. And I was always fascinated by that as a business phenomenon. I thought, why does this happen? There's clearly, it's almost like, flocks of geese or whatever, natural phenomena. You get flocks of starlings. And why is it, from the survival point, Darwinistic point of view, a good thing? But that must be a reason. And I guess it's kind of about, you attract a bunch of people who want curry, and then you have to have a keen price and be slightly different. And eventually you might choose to set up a curry house on the opposite side of town if you've developed an amazing reputation, because people will get in their car and drive there. But they seem to be in business. I mean, I have no idea what the average sort of life expectancy of an individual business in that area is, but I happened to go to the university there. My mother happened to go to university there, or whatever it was, 25, 30 years before, and it still existed. So as an overall concept, it seemed to work. So just what springs to mind when you say that. I don't know how generalized a business concept it is, but what it tells you is this idea of being totally resistant to hanging out with anyone even remotely similar to you is a very destructive instinct, because it obviously, if nobody knows it exists, it kind of doesn't make any difference what else happens, does it? Everything else is irrelevant. You have the best coffee in the world, but nobody knows your coffee exists. It doesn't matter that you think Starbucks is smelly and you don't want to be associated with them. I say this, I don't know why I keep coming back to coffee. I drink a lot of coffee, like a lot of entrepreneurs. But I really love that. That's brilliant. Listen, we could talk for hours and hours all day. There's still a whole bunch of stuff we want to talk about. Entrepreneurship and giving up the day job, outsourcers in Eastern Europe versus the Philippines. These are just the stuff that we've just talked about. So the only solution to that is to get you back on, if you'll have us, to get you back on the podcast again, because we have some amazing topics. But I want to sort of round things off here before we blow people's brains completely, because there's a lot to absorb. If you're used to the Amazon world, suddenly the Google world, which a lot of us are sort of vaguely familiar with from the past, and then come back to obviously there's just a mass going on with stuff. You've given some really clear-minded stuff to think about. I love that. You're obviously SEO for Airbnb and PayPal speaks for itself. So how do we work with you at ClickMinded? Give us just a quick flavor, the pitch, guys. This is where it comes, but just the quick summary of the free stuff you offer and the sort of paid stuff, and where that might, in your opinion, work particularly well for e-commerce sellers.
Yeah, sure. So ClickMinded is a digital marketing training course that I run. I started it at PayPal to train up my colleagues in marketing there and continue to use it while I was at Airbnb. So anyone who joined the SEO team at Airbnb, the data scientists, engineers, and designers that kind of joined the growth team all took it. And we've sort of evolved it into a full digital marketing training. So 7 different courses for entrepreneurs, marketers, and consultants or agencies. It's at clickminded.com. We have a bunch of free mini courses, checklists, cheat sheets, templates. We have a free SEO strategy guide and digital marketing strategy guide that we designed, like these retro 8-bit design. So like if you ever played Nintendo or Super Nintendo in the 90s, it's kind of designed that way. But 95% of everything we do is free, and you can check it all out at clickminded.com.
Yeah, I have to say that I did download one of the things, and it was really clear-minded. I really like that. And again, talking of content strategy, I think you practice what you preach in terms of putting some pretty quality stuff out there. I mean, I'm having created probably much less good stuff than that, but trying to create more of that now for people. I know how much work goes into even like a 10-page PDF or something. So you guys have obviously done a lot of work. So I'd really urge anyone to check that out because, yeah, there's so much free stuff. At the very least, you should be checking that out if Google is any part of the picture. And I would suggest, and I really want to emphasize this because a lot of people will be going, yeah, it's not relevant. I'm not doing Shopify. I can't stress enough. If you're listening to this, there aren't going to be huge numbers of people. So you're ahead of this curve already. It's not like hundreds of thousands of listeners to this podcast, but the smart people I know, and they're always ahead of the curve by 6 to 12 months, are exactly looking at Google SEO expertise going direct to Amazon. If you dismiss it, I think you're dismissing the next huge wave, and if you get ahead of the wave, you win. So this is my feedback on the whole, should you be looking at Google SEO? If you're an Amazon seller, I think you should strongly consider it. And even if you're not going to do it yourself, get somebody else trained up in your team to get good at this, because Google ain't going anywhere either. So that's the other thing to say. So a couple of final questions then. First of all, is there a particular course or particular sort of resource that you think, based on the discussion we've had today, would be a helpful next step for people, particularly if they're Amazon sellers or e-commerce generally?
Yeah, our SEO or digital marketing strategy guide would be good, or our free mini courses. It's like video kind of courses that they can check out. Probably the SEO one would be the best one there, and you can get that at clickminded.com.
Great, amazing. And final thing then is it's kind of how long's a piece of string come kind of to the nth degree. Last minute, two or three, or even one kind of hint to people who are venturing into the SEO world, having been, very product focused, very e-commerce focused.
Hint related to like tactics to think about, or what do you mean?
Tactics to think about would be good, or even mindset shift, or whatever you think. I mean, another way to put it is, what do you think is the commonest block or the commonest mistake you see with people coming into the world of SEO or coming to grips with SEO properly, who are coming from an e-commerce background, if that's something you've seen?
Interesting. Yeah. So I think one big thing, and this was, if you want to talk about just digital products and sort of a digital play, digital content versus physical products, two big problems I had. One was you have to create a lot of great free stuff digitally that a lot of people are going to use and never pay you for. And you got to be very prepared for that. Just like the vast majority of what you're going to do is going to have to be free. I'm sure you know that with your podcast, right? I'm sure you know that with anything you sort of do digitally. When I was doing my FBA business, it's like, revenue for product. It's very, very simple transaction. So that's kind of one mindset shift. If you're an Amazon FBA seller and you haven't gone over to Shopify and you are getting ready to create content for your customer avatar, you have to be ready to do a bunch of work that doesn't bear fruit, which sucks. It really sucks. But the other thing to think about, and this is a little bit more meta, and it's about transitioning to the nature of the business, and this is probably a different podcast episode in and of itself, but these digital plays, like if you set up an Amazon affiliate site and it's all content and you're like kind of developing your own product, the nature of the businesses, and we've talked about this before kind of off air, are very different in terms of free cash flow. And one of the big reasons why I had to get out of my FBA business was because I was always a digital product guy first. And then when I got to the nature of having to order inventory, having to wait 2 months for that inventory to arrive, I was incredibly impatient, and my time horizon on these businesses wasn't long enough. And so, like, I think the nature of making that shift between a physical product business versus a digital sort of business is that the downside to the digital business are you do a bunch of work for free, but once it starts working, your free cash flow and your margin are incredibly high, and you can do a lot there. And with the Amazon business, as I don't need to tell any of your listeners, you get tied up often and frequently, right? And so they're not related at all. And so do keep that in mind if you're going to do this, is like you need to be two entirely different people in order to make this shift. You know what I mean?
That's extremely clear-minded. I mean, and it's kind of obvious for anyone who's experienced either, but I mean, it just because it's obvious from the sort of intellectual perspective doesn't mean that you're going to have a violent culture shock. So I think the other thing you just said is you got to be two different people. My suggestion is if you're amazing with physical products, you hire somebody who's great at digital marketing. And just to neatly bring things back in a circle to where we started, more or less, where you were talking about yourself and your business partner. Your business partner was out in China, loves sourcing products, great at freight train and stuff. You were the digital marketer. In the end, your business needs to be good at all these things. But if you try and get that in one person, you're probably going to go nuts. So in the end, you probably just need to either hire in an agency or, just get a different person in. And I know 2 or 3 businesses that are like that. One guy in the mastermind's got a Hong Kong-based business partner who has factories in China or connections to those, and he's based in the UK and does the the Amazon digital marketing side. So in the end, you need to be 2 people. You probably need to literally have 2 people, and then divide the work up accordingly. This is very sensible advice. I think we don't need to be too meta. That's probably the most practical piece of advice we've given in the last few episodes, where we've blown everyone's brains with a lot of stuff. But listen, it's been a lot of fun to talk to you. Clearly, incredibly knowledgeable about this, but you also have that knack of breaking things down, which is great. I mean, you kind of hope so because your business is teaching it, but some people really, blind with science. You have a nice knack of doing the opposite and making it feel very doable. So I'm personally inspired to, improve my SEO for Amazing FBA and then take that back into the e-commerce world as well, which I think, as you say, there's more going on there. So thank you so much for coming on. We're definitely going to get you back on. Really want to talk about where we have assistance from in the world and how you deal with that, and outsourcers generally. Always a fascinating conversation. And also entrepreneurship. There's a fascinating article, if you want to read the blog, at clickminded.com, about the whole thing of giving up the day job. When does that happen? The nature of entrepreneurship versus having a day job. A really great read. I really recommend that, but I really want to talk to you about that. For now, we better let you go back to the world of click-mindedness over in Hawaii, which we didn't mention. You're in Hawaii, violent number of time zones away. Thank you for getting up at the crack of dawn to talk to us. And it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks so much for coming on.
Yeah, Michael, this was great. Thanks so much for having me on the show.